I remember back in the days before E3 2016, before this game was The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and speculation on the title was limited to this trailer. Back then, during a long period of waiting for news, I got to thinking. We didn't know a single detail about Breath of the Wild's plot at the time. Heck, we didn't even know the game's name. And that led to some crazy ideas I hatched up. The one idea from that time that has always stuck with me was all generated simply from the design of Link's bracers. What if Link in Zelda Wii U was a Gerudo? Or at the very least was raised by Gerudo? And from there, I let the idea grow further. What if Ganondorf was Link's older brother, and a sort of father figure? And we get the opportunity to see and witness firsthand his transformation from a good, kind-hearted leader of a small village to the hate-possessed king of evil the series knows him for. That was an idea I thought of for Breath of the Wild 5 years ago. Fast forward to today, and a very similar discussion to that has opened up again. With the release of Breath of the Wild 2's first trailer, some very talented minds got to work reimagining what this supposed Ganondorf corpse could look like if he wasn't, dead. And so came the waves of fan art and the such reimagining a new take on this classic villain, many of which skewed towards portraying him in a more positive light. And from there, it has spiraled on into theories, discussions, and most importantly, our main question for today. Is Ganondorf redeemable? Because we can redesign and fantasize about what that kind of character twist would look like all day, but my question is it justifiable? The character that served as the main antagonist to this series for nearly 35 years. You might think finding our answer would be rather simple, but in truth, it's a lot less straightforward. The Legend of Zelda is not a very lore-based series. I know looking at any Zelda channel on YouTube might have you fooled on that, but in the end, these are for the most part pretty simple stories going in line with Nintendo's very foundation of game design, fun first. What makes the Zelda series so unique though, and the reason you probably watched Zelda theories on YouTube before, is the countless scraps it leaves. It's really genius when you think about it. A series called The Legend of Zelda relies on its players in many ways to fill in the missing parts of its legend. So I want to connect this line of thought back to Ganondorf, because the games paint us a picture of an evil man that threatens the world. That is what is clearly established to us. But when we take a closer look at his actions and dialogue, scraps of a deeper personality begin to show. As it currently stands, there are 4 different times Ganondorf has appeared in the series, but we're going to focus on these 3 appearances since Four Swords Ganondorf is not the same man. Ganondorf was born a Gerudo, and a very special Gerudo at that, with the title of King being his birthright. See, the Gerudo share a strange trait. They are a tribe entirely composed of females, with only one male born to the tribe every century. Being native to a vast desert, life among the Gerudo is not easy, driving their people to often resort to thievery and hardening Gerudo into fierce warriors. This is the culture Ganondorf grew up in. He was primarily raised by the 2 elders of the tribe, Kome and Kotake, who likely taught him magic and guided him down the path to becoming the King of Thieves. His actions throughout his first appearance in Ocarina of Time fit this backstory told in it as well. He spends a good amount of the game hiding in the shadows, using manipulation and other questionable tactics to get what he wants. He was born into a world where to survive he had to take, but as he emerges in Ocarina, he seems to have taken his old methods of survival to new extremes. So the origin story of Ganondorf might not seem like anything special. He was born into a harsh land, and by the end of the line, had taken his ways too far. But then something interesting happens. The timeline split, where we see Ganondorf go down 2 completely different paths in Twilight Princess and Wind Waker. Now it's important to remember the context here between where these 2 paths split. On the adult timeline, the events at the end of Ocarina of Time remain, Ganondorf's defeat and sealing and all. While in the child timeline, his plans are never even realized, being stopped in his tracks before he even has a chance to enter the Sacred Realm. Which is why where this character goes next following these 2 outcomes is so interesting. I think it's rather easy to label Wind Waker as Ganondorf's least malicious appearance, while Twilight Princess has to be Ganondorf at his worst. Now, his behavior in Twilight Princess is understandable, following the events of Ocarina of Time in the Child timeline. He lost everything before even getting started. Revenge is his #1 goal in Twilight Princess, making the people who ruined him suffer. But then, why is it that in Wind Waker, he acts so differently? Ganondorf is almost certainly not sealed on good terms at the end of Ocarina of Time, but the next time he shows his face in the adult timeline, in Wind Waker, he's not outright terrorizing the Great Sea in a bid for revenge. On multiple occasions, he chooses not to kill Link and Zelda, and his whole goal and motivation is not to destroy Hyrule, but to return it. Not to mention also delivering the most personal speech Ganondorf has ever given. Something changed. This is not the same person whose final words before being sealed were, "Someday, when this seal is broken, that is when I will exterminate your descendants." And that's where we need to rewind. Back to the very beginning. Ganondorf has never been the source of evil in the Zelda series, though it might have once seemed that way. But ever since 2011's The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, his role in the series' continuity drastically changed. All thanks to the introduction of the original evil in the Zelda series, Demise. The Zelda series was not created with a continuity between games in mind. That is until Skyward Sword tried to change that. It very clearly positioned itself at the beginning of the Zelda story, and as a result wove together a timeline to create a better structure to its world, only to abandon that structure in the next 3D game. But the point is, everything changed for the lore of the Zelda series following then, and the source of evil in Hyrule was now a title given to a different villain, Demise. The final scene of Skyward Sword famously explains and gives context to the return of Zelda's 3 main characters with Demise's curse, basically stating that wherever there is a hero and a princess of Hyrule, a form of his evil will follow them. It's easy to see how the King of Thieves from a barren land might yearn to bring his people to the greener pastures of Hyrule. But this, I have trouble believing this is what he truly wanted. I don't think Ganondorf is an inherently bad person, but the Curse of Demise is. In Ocarina, we see a man who has twisted and distorted his upbringing into a conquest for Hyrule, but the means by which he finds himself ruling it, with not even his own people by his side, is not what I think he wants. In Twilight Princess, we see a broken, deranged shell of a man who, losing all of his senses and own motivations, takes his conquest even farther, bringing Twilight upon the world to rule by chaos. In Wind Waker, however, we see a man not twisted or deranged, but calculated, cautious, and patient. He acts almost out of character, going from his final words in Ocarina to not taking the easy opportunities he is given to execute the hero or the princess, even saying, "Do not fear, I will not kill you. I merely have need of the power that dwells within you." Something changed. I'm not sure how, but I am sure that the best way I can explain Ganondorf's change of heart in Wind Waker is that this is the first time we have seen him, just as that, himself, not influenced by the spirit of an age-old demon's curse. Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, even Four Swords Adventures, in the final battle of each, Ganondorf makes a transformation into Ganon. However, the one game, the only game that shows us Ganondorf without a sign of his beast counterpart, is Wind Waker. Ganondorf is no saint in Wind Waker, but I do believe he is actually working for good in his own way. When viewing Zelda's dream, he begins to talk about the oceans, how they separate the people of the surface, and they yield no fish to catch, going on to say the gods abandon Hyrule. And I think this is the closest we get to figuring out why Ganondorf wanted to bring Hyrule back. To save the world from the exact same pain he and his people felt. The Gerudo felt. But there's one more thing that's relevant to who Ganondorf really is as a person. His lineage. Which might surprise you. That's right, Groose is the key, and as out of place as you think that might sound at first, I'm not pulling your leg. It is heavily implied in Skyward Sword that Groose is the progenitor of the Gerudo. First, look at his appearance. The thick lips, yellow eyes, red hair, and even a red gem holding the hood around his neck. All prominent traits that define the Gerudo in most of their appearances. Groose stands out in Skyward Sword as the only person in the game to hold many of these physical attributes. And that in of itself makes him a strong case to be the father of all Gerudo. But the ending of Skyward Sword provides us with even more evidence. In the post-credit scene of the game, we can see Groose flying away while both Zelda and Link watch from the goddess statue, now located over the sealed grounds. In the scene, we see him fly west, implying he is going to settle in Lanayru Desert, which is almost certainly the same land later renamed the Gerudo Desert. Even the geography lines up. Groose is the original ancestor of the Gerudo, and by that, of Ganondorf. So then, isn't it interesting who Demise's curse ends up using as a host? A man whose ancestor played an instrumental role in his defeat. A final retribution on Groose for his role in aiding the goddess and the hero. His descendant being possessed by Demise's will to destroy them. The beginning, the crossroads, diverging paths, evil's origin, and an unlikely lineage. But with all that we have just examined in tow, the question still remains, is redemption for Ganondorf justifiable? I'll let you come to your own conclusions, but based on all we just went over, I think it is. I'm not necessarily saying yes, there will be a 100% chance we see Ganondorf do a total 180 from this to this. Being honest with you, I don't think that's going to happen in the sequel. But at the same time, this concept of a good Ganondorf, popularized by Breath of the Wild 2's first trailer, is much closer to reality than many give it credit for. And I could still see a redemption story for Ganondorf as something that happens in the future. Heck, for all we know, there is still a chance people landed right on the money, and this corpse was placed in the trailer to throw us off its scent. The bottom line here is that if you look close enough, Ganondorf is not the one-note character he often seems to be. And there are pieces in place here that can build this character a road to redemption. And based on what we covered in Wind Waker today, some might argue his appearance in that game is a soft redemption arc. Throughout the series, Ganondorf has done some terrible things. Like I said, he is no saint. But his lineage, the curse driving him, and the completely different path he walks along the series' crossroads show us there is a deeper conflict here. I don't think Ganondorf is an inherently bad person. I can't answer the question of will Ganondorf be redeemed. That question is up to Nintendo. But I can answer this. Ganondorf is a redeemable character. Hey there, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, subscribe! Yeah! We are getting awfully close to 5,000 subscribers, and if you're new here, I'd love to have you join us on the final stretch there. Plus, I have some big announcements and stuff planned for when we do reach that milestone, so just saying. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment down below. Did my argument convince you? Can the dwarf be redeemed? And remember to have yourselves a wonderful day, because I already said it, so, you know, now you have to. Ha! I'll see you guys with a new video next week. Bye.